time I'm interviewing you in this space, right?
Absolutely. We talked about the Maroons, which in fact later on turned out to.
Okay, sorry about that. We got bumped on the prior interview. So we are gonna pick up and get into this interview with the author of a book that was done on behalf of Mutabaruka. So it's Mutabaruka's book in the sense that it's about Mutabaruka, but it was done by a university student from somewhere. Well, I guess we'll learn about it right now.
I have an Austrian connection. The topic that we were talking about, this bank issue,
Yes.
It was connected to the big Wirecard scandal, which was an Austrian who really was involved in it. So that's quite interesting.
Isn't it though? Wow. Welcome back to the space. I'm so happy to have you in the space. What a delightful book. What a book that has gone into the ins and outs and the nooks and the crannies of Mutabaruka's life. You know, I read it and I said, it could easily be called The Philosophies and Opinions of Mutabaruka, you know.
No, it's not big enough for that. I really need to leave that to you Jamaicans and Africans to write that.
Yes.
That would be much more voluminous.
Yes.
And it should be done.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a brilliant book, though, so thank you for this. Mutabaruka, the Verbal Swordsman. You're a co-author with Sebastian.
Yes, and I think from the beginning I need to give the biggest credit to him. Mm-hmm. The book is actually based on his research and his master thesis in anthropology. I was the supervisor, and I guess the biggest bunch of work was actually done by him. Yeah. It was then up to me to sort of, bring it to a publication level.
Yeah. All right. So talk to us about that. He was scheduled to be on today, but I understand he's traveling. So tell us about that.
Yeah, background. He's in Uganda.
Oh.
He's in Uganda with his family. His wife is Uganda.
Oh, okay.
And he's there with their daughter and, since a couple of days.
Yes. And my bad because we pushed this interview back 2 weeks. But
exactly.
All right, so please tell us a little about that part of it, because this is, as you said, Sebastian's master thesis. So he did a thesis on Mutabaruka.
Yes, and particularly on the radio shows. That was really the agenda. Because I think, most people, reggae fans particularly, Area FM listeners, they are aware of the music overseas. Mm-hmm. In Jamaica, of course, everybody is aware of the radio shows. But overseas, when some fanatics, I would say, listen to them online, but most people are not so much aware what is actually the public intellectual Mutabaruka saying and what is his impact on Jamaican and Caribbean society at large. And that was the intention of this book.
Mm-hmm. And what did the process entail? This must have taken hours and hours and hours of listening back.
Yes, exactly. Sebastian spent, probably up to 2 years at least, selecting the programs, because it's amazing. Mutabaruka has about 8,000 hours of public appearances on air. I hardly know of any other person globally who really comes to that level.
Yeah,
so it was very difficult for Sebastian to actually select those parts that he thought, in cooperation with me, that would represent some major strains of Mutabaruka's intellectual work.
Mm-hmm. So what were you looking for in particular?
Well, different things, from his involvement in history, post-colonial claims, reparations, overall justice, equal rights and justice, particularly to Black people. That's the main thing that the book focuses on. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we also talk about his public intellectual work in Jamaica, because that's a man with a lot of influence.
Yes.
From my experiences in Jamaica, spending years actually in some places in the country, like in the countryside, in Maroon Town, Shaw Castle, remote places. I would know that my closest friends, Leon Hill and his family and many others, they would listen every week to the programs of Mutabaruka, and that would form the discussions the next day.
Yes.
And so that's really an impact.
Right, very prolific actually, because long before, and I like what you've done, and Sebastian, with in terms of how the book is ordered, looking at Word, Sounds, and Power, for example, is the first chapter, which looks at the movie days, the rise of Muta as a poet, going back to Marcus Garvey and the Black Power movement in Jamaica, and his experiences from the 12 tribes of Israel to Nyabingi, and so on, and Baba Shanti. And there's just so much there in that first chapter, and then talking about Rastafari as philosophy of liberation, so that you and Sebastian were able to situate Muta in that. That the development of Jamaica literally outside, long before he entered media, long before he entered radio, that this was his life's work.
Yes. Well, that interview particularly is actually Muta's words.
Yes.
We recorded it on camera some 15 years ago in 2008.
Yes.
That was me and my wife, my then wife, Manuela.
Yes.
And we actually released and published that long reasoning. It was just, I think, the night before he appeared on stage at the Morgan Heritage, the East Fest Festival. And he talked about 2.5 hours on record.
Yes.
And we transcribed it, and then with Muta, we selected those passages that he actually wanted to have released. There were some more biographical, some more personal ones in it.
Yes.
I actually, to be honest, I wanted to get that published, but he would like to leave that to an autobiography later on in his life, and he felt he would like a stronger focus on the radio shows. So that part he kind of left it out, but the reasonings on Rastafari, on Marcus Garvey and so forth, we kept in the book because it actually situates whatever Mutabaruka talks on your radio, on Irie FM, in his personal experiences. And we had a long discussion with Muta. He wasn't sure if he wants that biographical part that much. Actually, he didn't want it, to be honest. And it was me who tried to convince him, saying that people in Europe, in America, in Asia, in Africa, they are not so much aware of who you are. So I think they need an idea of what the person Mutabaruka stands for in order to understand what he talks on air.
Yeah, the mystique is good sometimes. So here we have you say in the book also, obviously, Sebastian's thesis, which you were the supervisor, and then we really want to talk to Sebastian about the work that he put in also another time. But there is on page 50 and 51 where it says that. Okay, let me see. Okay, good. When we proposed to him a book title referring to him as Rastafari, namely the Rastafari Verbal Swordsman, thinking to attract a broader audience interested in Rastafari in general, Muta refused. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, he's very careful. He speaks for himself, basically.
Right. Sorry, let me interrupt a bit, because you do go on to say that he did not want to make it appear as if he took on the role of an official spokesman.
Exactly. Yes. He's very careful with that. Because you see, even before in an edited volume called Rastafari, A Universal Philosophy in the Third Millennium, there was a chapter by Mutabaruka of a speech he gave at the University of Vienna as a keynote speaker for a conference that I organized. And again, I tried to propose to him to have Rastafari something in the title. But he will say no. He doesn't want to be mistaken for speaking for Rasta. And I think that's very important for him, that he stands for himself.
Yes.
And he doesn't want that kind of critique that he is sort of, pushing himself into a position of official spokesman. And that's quite important because, sometimes, as you can see on the internet, there are strong voices of Rastafarians speaking against Muta when he criticizes the Bible and so on.
Yes,
sometimes
and I do understand. And this is why I foregrounded this, because I know that he is seen in many quarters, even here in Jamaica. I mean, majority of Jamaicans see him as that, as a leader within Rastafari, so could easily take on the mantle of a spokesman for Rastafari, but that within himself, he understands the nuances, and that, and this is why I pinpointed this, because I thought, wow, this is so Muta to have said I don't want to
Absolutely.
be. Yeah.
100%. I fully agree.
Yes. Also in the book, and I've read the book, cover to cover, really, really enjoyed reading it. I found myself laughing too, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because I didn't know that I was in the book in this way, right? Muta saying that, he loved. My office used to be upstairs. And then Muta's always said something. And I didn't expect it to make the book, but it made the book. But anyway, so no, go on.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say he's a person who is really giving credits.
He does.
Whenever he receives something, whenever he receives an input, for instance, from his empress, from Amba, Empress Amba, he would mention that. Yes. And then many, many times to us he mentioned, well, what I'm doing on Area FM, Stepping Razor and Cutting Edge, it couldn't be done without the support of others.
Yeah, because this is a book about
others. You come first.
Well, look at that. Because I tease him all the while, and I noticed that he in writing in autographing the book to me, in signing the book to me, he says, Kabu and Mutabaruka, keep strong for Africa. If you fall, I will catch you. Because he has a song, I catch you if you fall. And I've always said to him, I know you'll catch me if I fall. Sometimes literally, we might be hosting a program together. And if the chair rickety or the chair is not, if it's unstable, I said, Muta, I know you'll catch me if I fall. And he always says, I'll catch you if you fall. So,
absolutely. Yeah. You see, I guess if you have Muta as an enemy, you must be really, really worried.
Yeah.
But if you have him as a friend and supporter, you have an army standing behind you.
Yeah. It is a brilliant book. As you talk about Muta giving credit, I mean, throughout the book, something that struck me, early in the book, in the acknowledgements, actually, I was so taken aback because I've never seen anything like that. Because all the presenters, guest presenters, and presenters who work at IRFM who have subbed for Muta when he's traveling out of the country and so on over time, they're all named in the book, and that was very surprising to me. I'm trying to, because it's pretty early. Yeah.
It says a lot about him because, he never conceives himself to be just the verbal swordsman. He's just taking that role to enforce and, pick up, actually, the communal struggle. The collective struggle.
Yeah, and let me just go through. Let me just go through the names, because it says past hosts. I didn't even remember some of them, and I was a person who would have asked them to sit in for Muta. Tony Rebel. Well, I obviously remember Tony. Tony Rebel, Kishima Francis, Caroline Cooper, Robert Williams, Miguel Lorne, Jelani Naya, Flo O'Connor, Mitzi Williams, Barbara Blake Hanna, Ivo Cooper, Franklin McKnight, Mark Wignall. I remember those days with Mark Wignall. Digital Chris, Amber Crowell, Louis Moister, and Yakim Samaj. And then it goes into the producers. Some who have left IRFM: Joy Morgan, Samantha Mitu, Tony and Linda, Tracy and Morris, Shamara Preston, Sandra Shaw, Simone Brown Keys, and the technical operators. And I'm saying this because the audience that's listening near and globally and otherwise would recognize these names. Wilbert Wisdom, DJ Neil, DJ Brian, Dane Young, DJ Kamar, Shane Clark, Nigel Durant, Nicholas Francis. These people are people who Muta have acknowledged in the book. This is phenomenal, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think he's doing the same for reggae actually. He's never leaving out those artists that have been forgotten, and even those artists who never quite made it.
Yes.
And that's very important too. And what you just said, I mean, having such a show and later on 2 shows for more than 30 years, it's amazing. He is a very popular artist as well. So he was traveling a lot to South Africa and many other places. So without those presenters stepping in, the show wouldn't have stood until today. And that's very important. And perhaps at this point, if I may, a quick timeout. 3 days ago, a very famous dub poet passed on, Benjamin Zephaniah. I think he's one of the big 5, apart from Muta, Uko Onura, Michael Smith,
and a good friend to Muta also. We paid tribute to him. I sat in for Muta on his program on Thursday, Gun, and we paid tribute to him in that space, to Benjamin Zephaniah. So thank you for raising it here again.
That's what I wanted to say. So, of course, he will do that immediately because that was a very powerful voice. And not just in music, the books he wrote. I just recently read again Refugee. I mean, I can just propose it for you to read. It's such an amazing.
No, it's interesting you should say that, because when I sat in for Muta, I said we could easily call this program "We Could All Be Refugees," in terms of paying tribute to Benjamin Zephaniah. So yes, there's a chapter. There's a chapter in the book. Chapter 4.3, where you talk about crime prevention and proposals for solution, going through Muta's programs, of course. And this is one of the chapters this is one of the chapters in the book that I found really illuminating, because it kind of, I go back and I said, for years, activists and advocates and people like Muta have been raising some of these solutions in the spaces, interviewing all of the actors, and I'm talking about the players who can make a difference, and yet we still see a situation in Jamaica where crime is instead of us dealing with this, and instead of addressing the situation, we see a situation where crime is ballooning out of proportion. So this is a chapter, I think, that is really, really earth-shattering for me. It says, repeatedly, Mutabaruka plays his part in crime prevention campaigns or crime curbing initiatives. In his broadcast, he proposes pertinent ideas to policymakers to tackle the island's crime issues. Nevertheless, he demands from the authorities the same positive attitudes towards a common interest that he sees as his own responsibility. And so I suppose out of that, and I want you to comment on this, that Muta as a poet, Muta as the author, Muta as the radio announcer, the radio presenter, that he has always foregrounded solutions to things like crime and violence on the island.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I really appreciate. I appreciate love with Muta. He's not just talking about Babylon. He's really getting to ground levels, how to improve situations that he finds terrible. And I remember even him going on stage at Rebel Salute and talking about the crime situation and actually saying, who is not afraid if he sees a Toyota Corolla with black tainted window screens behind him? And people applauded him for it. And I guess it can only be the society at large to solve that situation. I mean, it's nothing that makes life nice in Jamaica.
Yeah. In the book, you say, let's contemplate some of the different aspects that Muta talks about to achieve a lower crime rate and establish a safer social environment. He proposes concrete measures in terms of social reform, be it job creation programs or entrepreneurship encouragement. In addition, he supports crime counteraction through restrictions of dangerous weapons or even acquisition of guns in private possession by government. He also speaks out for banning violent movies from TV, or at least rating them as parental guidance suggested. And then you say other suggestions include seeking advice from other countries in formerly crime and violence affected nations and cities. I want to make a point here because I remember that for years he tried through us and the producers here to get Rudy Giuliani on the program with him. And I think I can't remember if he actually interviewed Rudy Giuliani, but I do remember that I made those calls. And this is on Mufta's behalf. He was trying everything to get him to say, how did you manage to curb crime in New York? That was when Rudy Giuliani was Rudy Giuliani, right? How did you manage to curb crime in New York? And how can Jamaica learn from what you have done in New York? So we had made many calls to Giuliani's office, had conversations with them, and were in the process of setting up that interview. But I can't remember if Muta actually did that interview.
I'm not sure. No, I wouldn't be certain. I would rather think no, but you must ask him. But at least those parts where he talked about that kind of experience, those are the parts that Sebastian looked into carefully, transcribed it, and actually put it in the book. And it's very difficult to curb down crime. It is very difficult. Just telling people not to kill others, if it would have helped hundreds of thousands of regulars, it didn't really help, because the situation is as such that the alternatives for a lot of youth in those areas, in those garrison areas, in Kingston particularly, but not only in Kingston, don't find any other alternatives. They don't find jobs. Not everybody can be a registrar. So what can you do then? And once you get involved in some kinds of drug trade and so on, you almost need a weapon. And if the weapons are so much available, which Muta criticizes, that you can easily get it for very, very cheap prices. Then that's what you do. It gives you immediate power, and it gives you immediate access to financial means.
It must to move to another point. It must have been for Sebastian and then for yourself as a supervisor a treat to go through those parts of the program and of Muta's radio programs that dealt with, as you call it in chapter 5, the European remnants, Christmas, church, and state. That must have been quite something, isn't it?
Well, actually, we wouldn't have written that book if we were not critical of the European remnants. That kind of critique motivated me from the very beginning of my career as a student, some 40 plus years ago. You would have to ask people like Leon Hill, with whom I spent many, many months in Maroon Town and Shaw Castle in his family. He would certainly recall his conversations from the beginning. So actually that brought me to Jamaica, that brought me to reggae, that brought me to Peter Tosh and Mutabaruka and so forth. Because actually I'm the same with my country and with my continent, Europe, and my system, as Muta is with the Jamaican system. Critical. And I think you need to be that, otherwise you're just not a thinker. And so on that level, we are doing pretty much the same. We are criticizing what we see wrong in our societies. And basically the situation today between Europe and Africa, it's not very good.
No, not at all.
And that mistake goes back to colonialism, but I'm talking now about our lifetime. It goes back to rebuilding equal relationships after colonialism, and that hasn't happened. Not to the degree that we would have wanted it to be. And actually, reggae to me, to a large extent, is a bridge builder. Even if people talk about fire upon Rome, fire upon this and fire upon that, they come to places like Rome to do that. And they do it in front of Romans. And that's what Muta said in many of his talks at the university and so forth. I have that on record. That's amazing. And it's telling you that those links between people are possible. And actually, the book is an example of it.
Yes, it is a brilliant book. And once again, I want to congratulate Sebastian. Did he get a distinction for his master's work? Yes, I'm sure.
Yes, of course. Yes. Well, I had to grade it. It was a very good thesis. Yes. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to make such a book out of it.
Yes.
So he has done a great job. And Muta as well, he usually acknowledges him first and is saying, this professor here has done very little. I felt I did a little bit, but the major part of work actually was Sebastian's. Yes. But again, the groundwork was Muta's. Mm-hmm. Because without his talks and his speeches on radio and his interventions, Sebastian couldn't have written that. And,
yes.
Let me say one more thing, perhaps. The way we see it from the outside, that is from Europe or from Austria, Mutabaruka is not just an icon, he's something very, very peculiar for Jamaica. Mm-hmm. I don't think that someone doing that for 30 years and saying any political ill in such an explicit way, emphasizing any political ill in such an explicit way could remain on air in even Austria, and Austria is fairly liberal.
I was thinking about that this morning, actually, just driving to work, because, and I thought the very same thing, that within this discussion of freedom of speech, that IRFM does provide the space, that Muta has been doing this for so long, and at times is even cited when people are saying that, well, there is freedom of speech for journalists and for media workers and so on. And then I thought again to myself, but sometimes the conversations are a little bit skewed because they don't know how much pressure the presenter comes under, and that you do that, and then you're ostracized and you're not invited to their parties and you're left out, and so I was having that conversation in my head this morning, and then I came right back to where you left it now, which is that in many other countries, though, this program would have been on air. So there is a point to be made there. Yes.
Do that in China or in Russia or in the Emirates or in many African countries, in fact. Yeah. You're not only jailed, you probably don't survive it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I believe Mutabaruka is perhaps the biggest proof of the vitality of democracy in Jamaica that you could ever find.
What a conundrum, because on the other hand, it is the reverse is also true. In terms of the extent to which people at Muta are ostracized by the system because of what you say and because of who you are, so there's still that on the other side.
To be honest with you, long time ago, 30 years ago, when I would listen to Cutting Edge in the car somewhere in Kingston or in the countryside, I was wondering, can he survive for very long? Because he was criticizing those in power, those with economic and executive power.
Yes.
And we know many people who have been killed in Jamaica.
Yes.
From Peter Tosh to many others. Bob Marley was shot at. I mean, imagine. I was at the time I was thinking, I'm not sure.
But the threats come in, and I'm sure he'll tell you about those. The threats do come, but the point is well taken, that there is that on the one hand, but quietly, there are those threats that come in, and the refusal to engage, because of who you are and because of what you say. So there is also that. So just to balance things a bit. But once again, just to say thank you. Thanks, Sebastian, for the research. Thank you for overseeing this research, for supervising this research, and for publishing this book, Mutabaruka, the Verbal Swordsman. Who is the publisher? Ian Randall Publishers.
Ian Randall Publishers again, yeah. I had very good contacts with him, and actually, in the meantime, I believe we are friends. I've met him many times.
Yes.
He published a number of my books, and I know that he's very friendly with Muta too. They've met at conferences in Vienna and so.
Yes.
So I think when we talked to them and said we have a book on Muta, are you interested? Immediately came back a response, yes, 100.
Brilliant, 100%. Brilliant. Love that. The book is going to be launched. I'm not at liberty to say much more than that, but that you'll hear more to the listeners once that happens. Once again, Professor, thank you so much for the work that you continue to do. And thank you so much, and Sebastian also. We'll have another discussion with Sebastian to go a little bit deeper into his research and what he found and how we do it, the methodologies, etc., etc., etc. But thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you, and thank you for your brilliant work on IRFM. And of course, thank Mutabaruka for having that trust in us to do that book together with him.
All right.
That's the most important part.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Omni Optical Elements has the latest technology lenses and frames to suit your taste and budget. Visit us at 67 Halfway Road. Online at opticalelementsja.com or call 929-8284.
Okay, anyway, that's the interview with the co-author.
6 minutes after 8 o'clock.
Okay, let's pause there as we get back in. As I was saying, that was an interview with the author, a co-author of Mutabaruka's book, recent book that is being published, that has been published, and is being marketed and distributed. We would have heard Mutabaruka, well, not we, as you would not have heard it on this platform, but I would have heard Mutabaruka in England promoting his book a couple of weeks back. And I guess he's planning to go different parts of the world. Maybe that's why we didn't hear him on the weekend. During the week, Wednesday and Thursday. Maybe he's somewhere touring with the book. But that was that interview. Quite an interesting interview, and quite interesting that somebody found the need to document the works of such a humble brother, humble but yet powerful brother in terms of, Rastafari, Pan-Africanism, Afro-consciousness, humanitarian, farmer, a whole heap of different realms you could look at when you talk about Mutabaruka. Anyway, this looks like it has another, let's say, 25 more minutes. So let's see what's going on in the final 25 minutes, and then we wrap this up for today.
Just once again to say the book is called Mutabaruka, the Verbal Swordsman. We have been reading this book in the book club, the Running African Book Club. The foreword is by Professor Carolyn Cooper. And really, it is a very, very, very good read. So if you've been reading it, published by Ian Randall Publishers, if you've been reading, good. If you've finished it, we can have a conversation about it. But very, very good read. So take up a copy and get your copy and read. All right? Muta! Yeah, look here, man. Look here. I don't want to say that,
No, what you know? It's late last night I come line up, God. It's one thing, when you dip on the cruise there.
Yes.
So, I come back to because they will ask me if I could do the shoot tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I tell her, I'm going to come back still. But
yes.
Yeah, me hear the interview, man.
Yes, man. We read the book, man. Sebastian was supposed to be on, but he's in traveling to Uganda.
Ghana, Africa.
Yes. But it's a brilliant book, Muta. I don't know what you think. Well, obviously you must have signed off at it at some point, but I think that it really brought the programs to life, you to life, and it really is. And then because it is also done from an academic perspective, even though it is easily understood.
I can tell you what we've never said. We've never said.
Yeah.
All right. So people usually do them kind of book there when the person dead. so when they come, I say, I did not show them. They say, by the way, I say, two white people come, do a program for this people at him, I said, white people have come again for come. But think back on it, most of the book that were white people write about artists and things is when them dead. So we didn't have an opportunity now to direct what is in the book.
Yes, yes.
So I say, look at now, me give the permission, if you send the script come to me, I make them read it first.
Yes.
Man, it's when I send the script, me and Jackie sit down in the house, you know. And I fight the core thing.
line up and line, please.
Go through the thing. It's about half of the book must be take out, you know.
Well, I kind of heard him saying that because the biographical part of it it seems, because I heard him reference that a few times to say that there's some things that you didn't want in it right away.
Yeah, because I said, sure, you know, so when that Jackie don't go through it, as I said, it come to about half of the book and we send it back again. Let him go over and I say, why me don't want that? I say, look, you know, what I mean, why me don't want that? I don't want that in there.
But Muta, there's another aspect to it, right? Because this is somebody's thesis, right? So before it was a book, it was university students who are doing their master's thesis, and they chose you, and especially your work in the media, as their thesis question.
Yeah.
Right. So it's also part of. So there's that. So I suppose all of what you would have taken out would have been submitted as part of their thesis, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And furthermore, now, Caroline, the years long before them come up in the picture, Caroline said, why me don't do a book about the philosophy and opinions of Mutabaruka?
But you
I actually approached a brethren and I said, look, why are you using this thing here? I'm going to pay you to do it. Well, it look like the PM get the marks and nobody will do it. So I don't know what so I said, all right, so Caroline now, we decided that Caroline is the right one now, because you know when white people listen to it, them hear something different but you never say.
Right, yes. Them dancing to the guitar.
Yeah, Caroline now is the one now who will make sure say, when they say, it's for them right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I never have no doubt about how it will turn out.
And I see that Caroline was involved. She also wrote the foreword to the book.
Yes,
which is brilliant.
Yes, she's brilliant.
Yes,
and she was one of the ones who actually do the program too.
Yes.
But I was not there. But
right.
we can go back to some historical things. You see, Mr. Young, I hear mention about, you know, the freedom of speech on radio.
Yeah, hold up, because I have a break, so let me just take the break and come forward, because you and me know how it go already. Hold on. The freedom of speech.
That's how Mr. Young now. All right. You see, Mr. Young, you see, you and Mr. Young, that's how I mention Mr. Young first. You see, Mr. Young in the early, I already hear them talk about freedom of speech. Continent was one of the programs where them call Mr. Young to take off on the radio. And two, Mr. Young knows it's an independent thing and a him film things. Mr. Young said, look at him, he said to me all the while, I'm say on the radio, him say, look, you know, I don't care them what I say, you know. As long as you don't put no hole in my pocket.
That is true. I be a witness, so I know it is true.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you know, because we Papa, come on, but I just told him, and I'm going to say publicly, even white trying to take out the program off on the radio.
Well, and we have similar experiences, so I know exactly what you're saying.
I know your program too.
Yes. And
when I hear you got that old freedom of speech, I don't think them know what
behind that. This is what I was trying to say a while ago without saying too much, that the threats that you get as individuals and then the threats that come into the station up to today day, you know, to get these programs off air, Cutting Edge, Stepping Razor, and Running African. This is the kind of things that we have to deal with behind the scenes. So that on the one hand, it appears as if you have freedom of speech, but on the other hand, because IRFM is the kind of station that it is, and the independence and the foundation that Mr. Young set, and Chad came and followed that foundation. Debbie follows that foundation as a managing director now, so that there is a kind of an insulation for the freedom of speech at IRFM.
Yes, and the next thing about it, is when we started out and the youth to the program, the youth have the eyes to listen to it. All over the world.
I remember. Yes, it's true.
Some of the eyes, and what that knows is that those people who could have really do something, them never take it serious because they say this is a barefoot Rasta man by the radio. They just a talk and talk. So nobody now will take it serious. You understand?
And so they did take you serious. Let me tell you how they took you.
I will go to that. Yes. I will go to that because when they realize that the youth them are listening, them start to really say what we